why don't we take a moment to look at what the project's going to look like at the end. So this is our My To Do checklist, and it's got a header, and we're going to create a functional component for that one versus a class component. And then it has, we hard-coded some things in here. So if you click on it, it's going to say, hey, it's completed by, crossing it out. And then we can add some new things to it. So I could say, go to the store and submit. And then we have a new one. We could do that. We could also delete it. So that's going to be the functionality of our to-do list. And then if you come over here and look at some of our code, we're going to be creating, if we go into the source folder, we're going to be creating in our component folder, we're going to create a functional component, and then we're going to have some other regular class components. So if we go into our app.js, you're going to see we're going to have 3 different children coming in, and we're going to have some different functions, adding to the list, deleting to the list. We're rendering. And then we're going to have our header. That's going to be our functional component. So it says function header versus the class component. That's a real small one. So that's going to be super easy. And then the add to list one, we're going to have our functions on submit, on change. And what we're going to do with a couple of our children components is we're going to add some inline styling. So we're going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to have our individual to-dos. And so let's get started. Okay, so let's start by creating our first child component. So we're going to go into the source folder. I like to just click it off and then click and just make sure I'm highlighting it. Okay, and then I'm going to hit new folder, and then we're going to make a components folder. And then inside the components folder, let's create a file called to-dos with a capital T .js. So this is going to be our child component. Okay, and there we are. So let's go back to app.js and let's just copy all this stuff. And then we'll bring it over to to-dos, and then we'll paste it. And then of course we're going to have to change a few things. So we don't have to import the CSS. We are going to obviously change this to to-dos with a capital T. Okay, and then I want to create it, I want to make it a class component. So I'm just going to get rid of all this and just type it out. So class to-dos extends react dot component. And then we're going to do our curly braces, and then we're going to render, and then we're going to do another set of curly braces, and let's return something. So let's return just how about a div. Okay, and my Emmet's not working. It usually just gives me another div. It completes my div. I don't know why. Okay, so we're just going to do a div, and then let's do a h1 in there maybe. So we'll say h1 to-dos. How about we'll write to-do list. Okay, and then we have our final div and our closing div. All right. Okay, so we're returning that. Okay, so that's our little component. Just clean this up a little bit. And I want to put this here like that. Okay, so we're going to control save. Now we're not going to be able to see it yet because we have to import it into the parent app. Parent component. I keep saying that. Parent component. So let's go back to the parent component, and we'll import. The name of it is to-dos from, and it's going to be the same path as before, /components /to-dos. Okay. And then we go down to the bottom and we have to add in our render. Let's change this to, well, let's see if what happens if we just get rid of this and put in our custom tag to-dos. Oops, spell it right. Okay, Control Save. Okay. So we need a render. That's why. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Oh, it's still compiling. It's not going to work. Maybe it'll work. It worked. I really thought we needed the render in there, but I guess it's fine with just the functional component. Okay, so now if you see that we just brought it in, that's why it says to-do list instead of what it said before. We just brought it in, we imported it, we're good to go. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is, I'm glad it worked, in our functional component, but I want to change it to a class component. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to class app, and then we're going to say extends, and then we're going to say react dot, sorry about that, react dot component. Okay, and then we're going to do our curly braces. Oh, we already have our curly braces, so we just get rid of this. Okay. All right. Do that. Okay, and then what we're going to do before we hit return, so we're going to do render, and then we're going to do our return. Do another curly brace, and then we'll do our return inside that curly brace. Okay, so return, and we got our div class name. Everything looks good. We still have our to-dos. Everything's right, and it looks correct. We need one more curly brace, it looks like. All right. Let's make it look a little nicer. Okay, so now we have our class component. Let's hit Control Save. Everything's looking good. Okay, it should come back to-do list. Okay, now what we're going to do with this particular application is we're going to try to have our child components, we want them to access the state. We want to share the state from our main app.js file. We want to share it between multiple components. So we're going to go ahead and put it in this component so we can share it with the children. So we're going to write state equals, and it's a JavaScript object, right? And what we're going to do is we want to display the to-dos. So we want to display several to-dos. So how about we make an array, and then inside the array we're going to let's create 3 different to-dos. Okay, so we're going to do some more curly braces so that we can add our properties, our attributes. So let's do a title of our to-do. And let's see, the first one is going to be, what was the first one that I liked? Was walk the dog. I like walk the dog. All right, gotta walk the dog. All right, and then let's say we want to say finished. So when it's finished, we're going to have we're going to end up having like a line through it. So you know, when you're doing a regular one with pencil and paper, you usually cross it out when you're done. So let's call it finished and say set it to false right now. Okay, and then we're going to create some more of those. So let's copy this and do it 2 more times inside our array. Okay, and let's change the title to something else. Okay, what's something else we have to do? Vacuum the carpet. Okay, how about we do another one? Let's say take out the trash. Trash. Okay, so we've got our 3 to-dos. Okay, we don't need a comma on the last one. All right, so let's see. Looks pretty good. Now, you know, we should probably add an ID to all of these different things, because when you're doing, you know, when you're working with your database and your back end, you're going to need IDs for all of your different items. So let's go ahead and add an ID for each one. All right, so let's say ID is going to be 1, and then here we'll say ID is going to be 2. And let's say ID is going to be 3. Okay. All right. Now, what we need to do is we need to go down to our render, and we need to access the state that we just created, and we're going to do it the same way we did it in our other project. So instead of just saying to-dos, we're going to go to-dos, and then we're going to say to-dos equals. Remember how we did that in the last project, and then we did our curly braces, and then we said this dot state dot whatever the name of it is, to-dos. Okay, and then our curly braces, and then our tag. Okay, and that was the way we were going to grab it from the child component from the props. So now what we have to do is we have to create those props to be able to grab it. So that's what we're going to do in the next video.